Welcome to the SLS Impact Room, the podcast where conversations connect hearts, inspire action, and shape better lives. I'm your host, Rita Ebere Anyao, and I'm excited to welcome you to our very first episode. At SLS Connect, we've always believed one thing. No dream should die in silence. No talent should stay hidden, especially for creative individuals out there. And no person should walk alone. SLS Impact Room is your space for real conversations that carry solutions, wisdom, and the courage to grow. Here we will learn from people from all walks of life and dive into the topics that shape our world: business, relationships, mindset, society, technology, personal growth, and everything in between. So today we are diving straight into a question shaking the Nigerian youths like the power outage at 8 p.m. Is school a scam? And joining me is my guest, a thinker, a doer, and someone who has seen both sides of the system. Welcome to the Impact Room. Please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Collins Okon, and it is a pleasure and an honor to be here.
You're welcome, Mr. Collins. Okay, let's start with the big one. When people say school is a scam, what do you think they actually mean? Is it the system, the curriculum, or the promise we were sold?
It's a combination of everything, actually. It's not one thing. It's a combination of everything. The system has worked off or has been based on a 120-year plan. The curriculum is almost the same, and then the promise we have been sold. Unfortunately, some more so than others have proven to be false. But in all, for those who strive for excellence, school can be a gateway. So it depends on how you want to look at it. Do you want to look at only the negative aspects of school? Or do you want to look at only the positive aspects of school? Or do you want to look at an overall impact or the overall impact of formal education? Because usually when people say school is a scam, they mean formal education. Do you want to look at the overall impact, both the advantages and disadvantages of the system, the curriculum, and the promise that were sold? That being said, I would like to point that formal education is not the only education. So usually, when you look at schooling, it should be looked at holistically, not just formal education, but other forms of education. So I hope before the night is over, we're going to look at the pros and the cons of these issues, and then hopefully you, the audience, will decide for yourselves individually if school is a scam.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for your answer. To be honest, how many things did you cram in school that you never used in life?
How many things did I cram in school that I remember using?
Or you have not used in life?
Or I have not used in life?
Not really used. You have not.
Normally,
there's no use for it.
Normally, a lot of things, and it's not because there's no use for it, but because there's the opportunity to use some of these things have not been put in place for us in this part of the world. So it's not a question of the things you crammed in school that has no use in life. For instance, algebra, looking for x and y, looking for the slope in a graph. Usually we don't know how important it is until you decide, I want to go into computer programming. If you decide you want to go into computer programming, you would now see that in regression analysis, some of those things you looked at, some of those things you thought were useless, actually have applications, real world applications. Even your algebra, the building of bridges, aeronautics, medicine, any aspect of life, most of these things have uses. Now it depends on the field that you find yourself, or the field you pick an interest in. That's going to decide what part of the education you received you are going to apply. So it's not a question of having things that you crammed that you didn't use, because usually the initial things you learn, you're not supposed to cram. But of course, the human nature, you look for the easy way out. Cramming is the easy way out. So usually those initial things you learn are the foundations for application of real world career choices. You learn physics, you learn chemistry, you learn biology. Now you might not necessarily use biology in your field, but you needed to learn it so that you would have an idea of how your field applies to biological systems. So that being said, let me go back to the original question. How many things? Of course, I've crammed a lot of things, so I've learned a lot of things that I do not have a need for right now. Right now. Does it mean I will never have a need for them? No, it doesn't. Down the line, who knows? I might actually have a need for them.
Thank you so much. So, do you think Nigerian schools are preparing students for the real world, or just preparing them to pass exams?
Honestly, right now, with the quality of education and the way the educational sector is being treated and funded, I think the Nigerian schools are actually preparing students just to pass exams. But of course, we still have students in these schools that actually prepare for the real world. There's no the difference between preparing for the real world and preparing for passing exam is just funding. Now, if there's funding, some of these things, they are quite easy. Now, because of the age that we are in, an age where information, there's an information highway that is so easy to access, you can actually prepare for the real world on your own as an individual, instead of waiting for the school to do that, which is actually the aim of learning. Currently, the Nigerian Universities Commission has been trying to implement an outcome-based educational system, not a system that will just teach the students and forget, but a system where the student has what we call lifelong learning, because of the fact that the student knows that, okay, this is the outcome of the learning experience that they have. That being said, wherever the teacher stops, the student is able to continue on his own.
Interesting. So, if life needs creativity, communication, financial literacy, digital skills, why isn't school teaching these things?
Come again.
I said, if life needs creativity, communication, financial literacy, digital skills, why isn't school teaching these things?
Schools are teaching these things. They are teaching it actually.
Financial literacy.
Financial literacy is being taught, but not in the way you expect. There's a subject in secondary school that is called business studies. There's another one called economics. There's another one called commerce. Okay. These are all gateways to financial literacy. These are all gateways to financial literacy. So, in terms of financial literacy, of course, it's being taught. When you're talking about communication, are you talking about spoken words? Because we have literature in English, and we have the English language. We have the Nigerian language is also taught in schools. Then, if you're talking about what else? Creativity.
Creativity.
Okay. Fine art is being taught in school. Of course, it is not going to be as
broad
as you expect, unless you actually go into this field.
Okay.
So some of these things are being taught, but probably not as in-depth as you expect. And the unfortunate thing is, the child doesn't have enough time to go into these things as deeply as should be.
Okay, that's why the curriculum is in
place. That's why you have the
curriculum,
and that is why everything has time. From this time to this time, this child is supposed to know this. From this time to this time. Now, when the child gets to the higher institution, that's where the application of outcome-based education takes place, where the child continues to learn on their own.
Yeah.
Yes. Hence the saying, learning never ends.
Learning never ends. Okay, good. So let's talk about the economic truth. Okay, our parents are paying millions, graduates are jobless. But job markets want certificates, not skills. Why is that?
It's only in Nigeria that, in short, it's only in Africa that job markets want certificate and not skills. Just Africa.
Why is it that? Why is it that way?
Because of the system, there's a systemic failure. So the Africa, because Africa is a consuming continent and not a producing or a manufacturing continent, we do not see the need. We do not see the need for skills. We do not see the need. This is an African problem. This is an African problem.
So what do they expect from their children? To just go to school, graduate, get a job? But it's still jobless, like a lot of jobless graduates.
A lot of jobless graduates. First and foremost, job creation is not the job of the youth. Job creation, first and foremost, is the job of the government. Yeah. Then the private sectors, the private investors that come in. And the only way to attract private investors and the private sector is by putting in place economic policies that are friendly to businesses. So, in all, the fault still falls on the government for not providing these policies and this atmosphere that will help small, medium, and large-scale businesses to thrive. So it's a governmental and a systemic problem. That is why you have a lot of jobless people. But in a country or an economy where manufacturing drives the economy, when you have manufacturing as something that drives the economy, then the need for skilled workers will be on an up. It will be on a higher level than the need for people that have just certificates. The need for people with certifications will be higher than the need for people with certificates. Now, in a place where a nation is more of a consuming nation, the need for skill isn't important because, if there's skill, what exactly do you want to use the skill for when you don't have the avenues to practice the use of your skill? So we have skilled workers. Unfortunately, skilled workers are not regarded the way people that have certificates are regarded, and that's why, for this reason, schools have been preparing students and young men and women for just obtaining certificates to go into the job market. And that's why you have a lot of cases where people would graduate from these universities and these higher institutions and not actually have opportunity to practice what they've studied in school. They will go into different fields. You see somebody that is a soil scientist working in a bank, and you see somebody that is a doctor deciding that he wants to work for the Central Bank of Nigeria because he pays better, and then he abandons his calling in the first place or his course of study. So it's a systemic problem, not the problem of the schools and not the problem of the young ones, but basically the problem of our governments and the system that has been put in place. Okay.
Interesting answer. You're still on the motion that school is not a scam.
No, it's not.
That's nice.
It's not.
Okay, so in personal experience, give me one thing school taught you that has been absolutely useless in your life.
Off the bat, I can't think of anything.
Okay.
That school taught me that has been absolutely useless in my life, like
in real life, like your
education.
Real life.
Education. I think in all honesty, I think I'm the wrong person to ask that question because my profession integrates a lot of individual courses. For that reason, I am more of a holistic. I have a more holistic approach to things.
Okay.
Yes. An engineer that deals with biological systems will tell you that this person is well-rounded in a lot of things. So chemical engineering, electrical engineering, computer engineering, I have applications and I have knowledge of these fields. So for me, I can't sit down here and tell you that there's one useless thing that school has taught me. Probably, if I had studied one of the obsolete courses, I probably would have said that school taught me something useless. not to downgrade anybody, but certain courses in school should not be studied because we have our mobile devices already do those things for us.
What kind of
For
courses
example, as I said, not to insult anybody, geography. We don't really have a lot of use for geography right now. Public administration. Some people study things like bookkeeping. So some of these courses, we don't need them anymore, honestly, because we have applications that can actually do these jobs. And a lot of jobs within the next 10 years, a lot of jobs that are relevant today will become obsolete because of the advent of AI.
Okay.
Artificial intelligence is coming and it is coming to take over.
Interesting.
Yes.
Impressive. But that's big because AI is involved. Everybody should still go to school, not learn from AI.
You have to go to school. For you to use AI the way you are supposed to use it, you have to go to school.
Okay. That's nice. So, if you were given power to redesign Nigeria's education system, if you're given the power to redesign Nigeria's education system, where would you start from?
I will start from the nursery school. I will
Why?
start from the nursery school and I will implement an outcome-based education from the nursery school. Teaching them real-world skills from the young age. They will learn to have this. They don't have to wait until certain ages before they get exposure to these things. From that time, you start to show them.
Groom them,
Yes,
yeah.
you groom them and also play to their strengths and their weaknesses. Actually, that's one of the limitations of formal education.
Okay. Go on.
That's one of the disadvantages of formal education. It keeps everybody in one place. It keeps everybody in one place. If there's an age group or an age grade, it keeps all of them in one place. And for that reason, sometimes the strengths or the weaknesses of certain students fall through the cracks. When you have an outcome-based system where these kids practice their knowledge and their dexterity and things like that, and an application of what you see or what they can do, you get to find out students that have weaknesses in certain fields.
Okay.
So it's going to help you to channel the child to where his or her strength lies, and not just a case where when they get to after they are done with their junior secondary school, they want to go into the senior secondary school, and then the student just say, I want to be a science student just because my friends or my sister or my brother is there. But now the student also knows his or her strength and knows that, oh, I have an affinity for this. I don't have an affinity for this. So from a young age, if I have my way, I will implement outcome-based education.
Wow. That's interesting. So, what is one practical advice you give a young Nigerian who feels school has failed them?
If you feel formal education has failed you, then you should try informal education. It is all right to be informal educated. It is all right. Honestly, it is all right.
So what are the pros and cons
of informal education?
Yes.
Well, if you want to work in the Nigerian space, you should know that the formal education usually pays better in terms of job opportunities. Of course, there are people that have had informal education that have been very successful, but the percentage of people that have had informal education that have been very successful compared to the people that have had formal education is not to be compared, unless, of course, the informal education you learned is the art of buying and selling. Usually that has a lot of advantage in this part of the world. So informal education can come in the form of apprenticeships. You could go to shops and learn how to buy and sell a particular thing. Mechanics, carpentry,
plumbing,
masonry, plumbing, electrification, skills, cobblers. Different. There are so many skills. Seamstress and seamsters or whatever. tailors.
Tailors, yeah.
You know, good. So there are so many painters. You know, there are so many skills you could learn informally. So many of them that you could learn informally, and people live off of them very nicely. And sometimes you even get your pay is usually higher. Not your pay, actually, what you earn because you are working. If you work constantly, what you earn might be higher than what somebody that sits in an office earns. But then you know that there is a cap to how far you can go in, let's say, policy making. Regardless of who you are as a mechanic, you can never ever get to the House of Representatives if you don't have formal education. A little bit, of course, you must have a little bit of it.
Yes.
Of course, we know that in our country today, we have had cases of forgery and everything. But if we are in saner climes, or if things are supposed to work the way you know that this is your limitation, you can't go further than this. So even if you have something to contribute, you can't because you don't have the educational backing to do such a thing.
Yeah. You're right. Wow, powerful insights. Anyway, today's conversation wasn't about destroying the idea of school, but exposing the gaps so we can build better solutions. Because in SLS Impact Room, we don't just complain, we challenge, we question, and we evolve. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You are welcome. It is a pleasure and an honor to have been a part of this podcast and to have been the first speaker. It's a wonderful experience. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see more of SLS Connect.
Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, your future is bigger than your certificate and your mind must stay open, curious, and ready to grow. See you in the next episode of SLS Impact Room. Stay impactful.